Money changes the way people look at you, but poverty or even the illusion of it shows you who they truly are. I've spent decades building a multi-billion-dollar investment fund, but on Monday mornings, I like to strip away the armor of my wealth. No tailored three-piece suits, no security detail, no private luxury lounges. Just me, an old olive canvas jacket, and a pair of scuffed leather shoes. I wanted to see how the world treats a man when they think he has absolutely nothing to offer them. The morning chaos inside the main lobby of Metropolitan Trust Bank was deafening. High ceilings reflected the blinding white marble floors, amplifying the frantic energy of the crowd. Men and women in crisp navy suits sprinted past each other, eyes glued to their phones, their wrists heavy with luxury watches. It was a temple of wealth, and I was an instant ghost inside it. I walked toward the touchscreen ticket kiosk near the entrance. Standing beside it was a young receptionist, bowing deeply to a wealthy-looking client. The moment that man walked away, her eyes landed on me. Her practiced corporate smile vanished so fast it was almost comical. Her eyes locked onto my faded coat. I reached my hand out to press the screen for a standard teller transaction. "Sir, excuse me, sir," she said, stepping in quickly. Her voice was a sharp whisper, dripping with condescension. I paused, my hand hovering an inch above the screen. I turned and offered her a polite smile. "Yes, young lady?" "Sir, if you are just here to cash a small welfare check or change loose coins, you don't need to wait in this line," she said, looking down her nose at my clothes. "The basic ATM cash express machines are outside by the sidewalk. It will save you, and our other clients, a lot of time." She thought she was being discreet, but her tone had the sharp edge of institutional arrogance. She looked at my jacket and calculated my entire net worth in a fraction of a second. She saw a burden, not a customer. "Thank you for the information," I replied, keeping my voice calm and even. "But I am not here for loose coins. I have a regular transaction to make today, and I prefer to do it inside." She sighed audibly, crossing her arms tightly over her blazer. "The wait time for standard accounts is over an hour today, sir. Mondays are strictly for high net worth business clients. You'll just be wasting your morning sitting here." Without saying another word, I calmly pressed the screen. The machine emitted a sharp beep and printed a small white slip. I took it from the slot and looked at it. The text read, "Standard guest. Number 142. Estimated wait, 75 minutes." "Number 142, I said, showing her the ticket. "I will wait for my turn." The receptionist rolled her eyes as I walked past her. She immediately turned her attention back to a man in a designer suit who had just entered, her artificial smile flashing instantly back to life. I walked over to the crowded rows of silver leather chairs in the waiting area. As I passed down the aisle, a few people glanced up from their tablets. Their eyes lingered on my scuffed shoes for a brief second before quickly darting away, as if making eye contact with a man like me might bring them bad luck. I found an empty spot at the far end of the row, sat down, and folded my hands over my lap. On the large digital display screen on the wall, the red glowing letters read, "Now serving. Number 89 at window 4. There were 53 people ahead of me. To the bank, those 53 people were just problems to solve or pockets to pick. To me, they were 53 human beings. I tucked ticket number 142 into my pocket, leaned back against the cold leather seat, and prepared myself to watch the show. I knew the real test hadn't even begun. As the minutes ticked away, the atmosphere in the lobby grew heavier with collective impatience. People around me were sighing, tapping their designer leather loafers, and constantly checking their watches. The air was thick with the scent of expensive cologne and cheap anxiety. Everyone here thought their time was more valuable than the person sitting next to them. I just sat there, blending into the background, enjoying the rare peace of being invisible. Then, the heavy glass doors swung open, and the mood in the room shifted instantly. A young businessman swaggered into the lobby. He couldn't have been older than 35, but he carried himself with the loud, unearned confidence of someone who had never been told no in his entire life. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit, a silk tie, and a gold Rolex that caught the harsh fluorescent lights of the bank. He was talking loudly on a Bluetooth earpiece, arguing about a real estate deal, completely ignoring the fact that he was in a public space. The moment his shiny leather shoes hit the marble floor, Linda Hayes, the branch manager, practically sprinted out of her glass-walled office. I had been watching Linda from a distance. For the past 40 minutes, she had ignored every ordinary customer, but now, her face lit up with a brilliant, submissive smile. She bypassed 3 elderly people who were waiting near the counter and hurried straight toward the young businessman. "Mr. Sterling, what a wonderful surprise," Linda gushed, her voice dripping with artificial warmth. "We weren't expecting you until later this week. Please, come right this way to our private lounge." The man, Mr. Sterling, didn't even look at her. He just held up a finger to silence her while he finished his phone call. "Yeah, buy the property. I don't care about the zoning laws, just get it done," he snapped into his earpiece before tapping it off. He finally looked at Linda. "I don't have time for the lounge, Linda. I need a wire transfer processed immediately. My associates are waiting in New York, and I have a flight to catch in an hour." Linda nodded frantically. "Of course, right away. But, as you can see, it's a hectic Monday morning, and all our high-level tellers are currently occupied. It might take 5 minutes to clear a window for you." Mr. Sterling frowned, his eyes scanning the crowded lobby with clear annoyance. 5 minutes. "Linda, my time is worth thousands of dollars a minute. I can't just stand here." Linda's eyes darted around the room, searching for a quick solution to satisfy her wealthy client. That was when her gaze landed on me. I was sitting at the end of the row, quietly holding my little white slip of paper. She looked at my faded olive jacket, my scuffed shoes, and the total lack of luxury around me. In her mind, the calculation was simple. My time was worth nothing, and his time was worth everything. She walked over to me, her smile replaced by a cold, commanding mask of authority. Mr. Sterling followed a few steps behind her, looking at his phone. "Sir," Linda said, her voice loud enough to draw the attention of the surrounding customers. "This gentleman is a premier diamond-tier client of our bank, and he is in an extreme rush for an urgent corporate matter. I'm going to need you to hand over your ticket number and step to the back of the line, so we can expedite his transaction." I didn't move. I didn't blink. I simply looked up at her, feeling a familiar sadness for how easily human beings can be dismissed based on their appearance. "I understand he is in a hurry," I said, my voice calm, steady, and loud enough for the nearby rows to hear. "But I have been sitting here for nearly an hour. I have a transaction to make as well. I believe the rule of this establishment is first come, first served. I will keep my number." The entire trading hall suddenly went dead silent. The clicking of keyboards stopped. The low murmurs vanished. Dozens of eyes turned toward us. No one, absolutely no one, had ever spoken to Linda Hayes like that in her own branch, let alone a man who looked like he belonged in a homeless shelter rather than a multi-million-dollar banking firm. The silence in the room stretched out, thick and suffocating. Linda Hayes stood there, her face frozen in a mixture of shock and pure rage. Her lips tightened into a thin line, and for a second, I thought she might lose her corporate composure right then and there. Mr. Sterling just scoffed, shaking his head in disbelief before turning away to type furiously on his phone again. "Fine," Linda whispered, her voice trembling slightly with suppressed anger. "Keep your ticket. Let's see how much longer you enjoy sitting here." She turned on her heel and led her wealthy client toward a different corner of the room, whispering frantically into her walkie-talkie. I simply leaned back into my seat, smoothed out the wrinkles of my old olive jacket, and went back to doing what I do best, observing. Over the next 45 minutes, my ticket number felt like a heavy anchor, keeping me grounded in a world most people try to rush through. The bank continued its mechanical dance, but I focused on the people around me. Without the distraction of wealth or status, you start to see the hidden struggles etched onto every face. An elderly woman sat down 2 seats away from me. Her hands were shaking badly as she clutched a stack of confusing financial documents. She kept trying to fill out a complex wire transfer form, but her vision was failing, and her pen kept slipping off the lines. She let out a soft, defeated sigh, her shoulders dropping in despair. I slid over into the empty seat next to her. "May I help you with that, ma'am?" I asked softly. She looked up, startled by my worn appearance, but when she saw the warmth in my eyes, her suspicion melted away. "Oh, bless you, young man," she murmured. "My eyes aren't what they used to be, and these forms look like they were written in another language." I smiled, took the pen from her trembling fingers, and spent the next 10 minutes gently guiding her through the process. I didn't rush. I asked for her information in a quiet whisper to protect her privacy, carefully filling out every single box until the document was flawless. When we were done, she patted my hand with a smile that was worth more than any stock market profit I had ever made. Shortly after she left, the sockeye-thick crowd in the lobby swelled even more. A young pregnant woman entered, carrying a heavy diaper bag and holding the hand of a restless toddler. She looked exhausted, her forehead beaded with sweat. She scanned the rows of seats, but every single chair was occupied by someone staring blindly into a smartphone screen, completely ignoring her. I stood up immediately and caught her eye. "Please, take my seat," I said, gesturing to the chair. "Oh no, I couldn't," she stammered, looking at my old clothes and assuming I needed the rest more than her. "You've probably been waiting a long time." "My legs are stronger than they look," I insisted with a warm chuckle. "Please, sit down." She sank into the chair with a massive sigh of relief, thanking me profusely. Her little boy stood beside her, looking up at me with wide, curious eyes. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a small wooden puzzle toy I always carry with me, and showed him how to solve it. Within minutes, the boy's restless whining turned into quiet, focused giggles. As I stood there, leaning my back against the cold marble pillar, I noticed a pair of eyes watching me from behind one of the teller windows. It was a young employee named Ethan. He had been quietly processing transactions, but every time he had a free moment, his gaze drifted toward me. Unlike the others, there was no judgment in his eyes. There was only respect. Standing against that cold marble pillar, I became acutely aware of how much your clothes dictate your citizenship in a place like this. To the security guards, I was a potential hazard. To the wealthy clients, I was an eyesore. But to Ethan, the young teller at window 3, I was simply a human being who had been waiting a very long time. I watched him handle his customers. While the other tellers looked miserable and impatient, Ethan treated every person who stepped up to his glass window with genuine dignity. He smiled, he listened, and he worked with a sharp, quiet efficiency. During a brief lull in the morning rush, Ethan stepped away from his computer. He poured a cup of warm water from the employee lounge, walked across the polished marble floor, and stopped right in front of me. "Good morning, sir," Ethan said, his voice low and respectful. He offered me the paper cup. "I noticed you've been standing for a while after giving up your seat. It's a bit chilly under the air conditioning today. I thought you might like something warm." I looked at the cup, then up into his honest face. In a building filled with people trading millions of dollars, this kid was offering the only currency. that actually mattered: kindness. "Thank you, son," I said, taking the cup. The warmth seeped into my hands. "That is incredibly thoughtful of you. What is your name?" "I'm Ethan, sir," he replied with a modest nod. "I see your ticket number is 1142. We are currently experiencing some technical delays with the business accounts, which is slowing down the main line. I apologize for the wait. As soon as your number is called, if I'm open, please come straight to my window. I'll make sure you're taken care of." "I appreciate that, Ethan," I smiled, taking a sip. "You don't see many young people with your work ethic these days. How long have you been here?" "Just under a year, sir," he said, glancing back at his station as a new customer approached. "I just believe that everyone deserves the same level of service, no matter what. Anyway, I have to get back. Have a blessed day, sir." He gave me a polite bow of his head and jogged back to his window, immediately diving back into his work. I leaned against the pillar and watched him go. I made a mental note of his name, his employee badge number, and the absolute sincerity in his eyes. My investment fund, Bennett Capital, doesn't just invest in companies. We invest in people. And in less than 5 minutes, this young teller had shown me more leadership potential than most of the Ivy League graduates I interview in my boardroom. But my moment of quiet appreciation didn't last long. From across the splay of the lobby, I saw Linda Hayes standing near the main vault door. She was staring directly at me, her arms crossed, her eyes narrowed like a hawk targeting prey. She had noticed Ethan giving me the water, and she looked absolutely furious that one of her employees was wasting time on a man she considered a nobody. She began walking toward me again, and this time she wasn't coming to negotiate. Linda Hayes didn't just walk toward me. She marched. The sharp, rhythmic clicking of her high heels echoed off the marble floor like a countdown timer. The polite, superficial corporate mask she usually wore for the wealthy was entirely gone. Her face was flushed with an ugly mixture of arrogance and authority. She stopped exactly 2 feet away from me, invading my personal space. She didn't look at my face. Her eyes immediately dropped to the half-empty paper cup of water Ethan had given me, then traveled slowly up to my faded olive jacket. "Let's cut through the nonsense, sir," Linda said, her voice dropping to a low, venomous hiss that was meant to intimidate me. "I've been watching you for over an hour. You've been wandering around my lobby, talking to people, handing out strange wooden objects to children, and now you're taking handouts from my staff. This is a highly secure financial institution, not a community center." I slowly took another sip of the warm water, remaining perfectly relaxed against the pillar. "I am simply waiting for my number to be called, Miss Hayes. I haven't broken any rules." "You are a distraction," she snapped, her eyes flashing with anger. "Look around you. This branch represents the highest tier of banking in this city. We handle accounts that dictate the local economy. Having someone like you loitering by the pillars, looking like this, makes our high net worth clients deeply uncomfortable. It lowers the prestige of this establishment." "A distraction?" I asked, allowing a small, knowing smile to touch my lips. Because I helped an old woman fill out a form your staff ignored. Or because I gave my seat to a pregnant mother while your premier clients stared into their phones." Linda's jaw tightened. She looked as if she wanted to slap the smile right off my face. "Your personal philosophy on charity does not interest me. What interests me is the security and reputation of this bank. I am the manager of this branch, which means I decide who belongs here and who doesn't. And right now you don't belong." She leaned in closer, her voice dripping with absolute certainty. "I am going to ask you one last time to leave these premises on your own accord. If you do not, I will make sure your exit is far less polite. You don't have the money to be in this room, so stop wasting my time." I looked at her, feeling a profound sense of pity. She was so blinded by the shiny, expensive things in life that she had become completely bankrupt in her own humanity. "I have a valid ticket, Ms. Hayes," I said softly, pulling number 442 from my pocket and holding it up between us. "And until this number is called, I have every right to stand right here." Linda Hayes stared at the little white ticket in my hand, as if it were a personal insult. A dark, ugly sneer twisted her features. She realized that words alone would not make me cower, and for a woman who lived by the illusion of control, my calm defiance was completely unacceptable. "Have it your way," she whispered, her voice dangerously quiet. She reached for the heavy black walkie-talkie clipped to her waistband, pressed the button, and spoke with absolute finality. "Security to the main lobby pillar. We have a non-compliant individual refusing to leave the premises. Escort him out immediately." The announcement sent a visible ripple through the immediate area. Nearby customers stopped typing on their laptops. The clicking of keyboards at the teller windows slowed down. I saw Ethan freeze at window 3, his eyes wide with shock and worry, as he looked over at me. Within seconds, 2 towering security guards in heavy black uniforms approached. Their heavy boots thudded against the marble floor. They stood on either side of me, their arms crossed, looking down at my old jacket with practiced, intimidating scowls. "Is there a problem here, Miss Hayes?" the lead guard asked, his hand resting casually near his utility belt. "This man is loitering and disrupting our biz operations," Linda said, her voice rising so the entire lobby could hear her. She wanted to make an example out of me. "He does not have a legitimate account with us. He refuses to cooperate with management, and he is creating an uncomfortable environment for our premier clients. Remove him from the building." I stood perfectly still, keeping my hands visible and my posture relaxed. I looked the lead guard in the eye. "Son, I have been sitting here peacefully waiting for my turn. I have not raised my voice, I have not threatened anyone, and I hold a valid service ticket. I ask you, what specific regulation have I violated?" The guard blinked, momentarily caught off guard by the deep, resonant authority in my voice. He looked at Linda, silently asking for clarification. Linda's face flushed bright red with embarrassment. "He doesn't need to violate a specific rule. This is private property, and I am ordering him to leave. Now, do your job and get him out of my sight." The lead guard turned back to me, his expression hardening. "All right, sir. You heard the manager. Don't make a scene. Let's walk to the exit." He reached out, his heavy hand gripping my elbow to guide me forward. I didn't resist. I didn't struggle or shout. I simply let them lead me away, stepping past the rows of staring faces. Some people looked away in shame, but many simply watched with cold indifference, as if a poor man being thrown out of a rich bank was just the natural order of things. As I reached the heavy glass revolving doors, I turned back one last time to look at Linda Hayes. She was standing in the center of the lobby, her chin held high, wearing a triumphant, arrogant smile. She truly believed she had won. She believed she had successfully protected her palace of wealth from an unwanted intruder. She had absolutely no idea that she had just sealed her own fate. The heavy glass revolving doors pushed me out into the crisp morning air of the financial district. The 2 security guards let go of my arms, standing like twin statues at the entrance, to ensure I didn't try to step back inside. I stood on the concrete steps, adjusting the collar of my faded olive jacket, feeling the cool breeze against my face. I wasn't angry. I was merely waiting for the final piece of the puzzle to fall into place. Right on cue, a massive midnight black Cadillac SUV with heavily tinted windows rounded the corner. It didn't park in the standard spaces. It pulled right up to the curb, directly in front of the bank's main entrance, blocking the red-carpeted VIP walkway. Inside the lobby, Through the massive glass panels, I could see Linda Hayes's eyes light up. A vehicle of that caliber meant serious money. She immediately began walking toward the doors, smoothing out her blazer, ready to offer her signature submissive welcome to whoever was inside. The driver's side door opened, and a chauffeur in a crisp black suit stepped out, quickly jogging around to the rear passenger door. He pulled it open, holding his hand over the frame. A young black woman stepped out onto the pavement. She was stunning, radiating an undeniable aura of power, intelligence, and high status. She wore a flawless, tailor-made charcoal gray power suit, her hair pinned back in a sharp, professional bun. She carried a premium leather briefcase in one hand, her heels clicking with absolute authority against the concrete. This was Olivia Bennett, a senior partner at one of the top corporate law firms in the country. Linda Hayes had just reached the glass doors, preparing to push them open with a grand smile, when Olivia completely bypassed her. Olivia didn't even look at the bank manager. Her eyes locked onto me, standing there in my scuffed shoes and old canvas coat. Her sharp, professional expression instantly melted into one of deep concern and affection. She rushed forward, abandoning her calculated stride, and threw her arms around me. "Dad," Olivia said, her voice filled with relief. "I am so sorry I'm late. The traffic coming off the bridge was an absolute nightmare. Tell me you haven't been waiting out here in the cold the whole time." The two security guards instantly froze, their jaws dropping. Behind the glass doors, Linda Hayes looked as if she had just seen a ghost. The triumphant smirk on her face completely disintegrated. Her eyes darted from Olivia's expensive designer suit and luxury SUV to Olivia's arms wrapped tightly around my faded jacket, and back again. Her mind was frantically trying to compute the scene unfolding in front of her, desperately trying to understand why an elite, wealthy woman was calling a man she had just discarded as garbage dad. Olivia pulled back, her sharp eyes instantly noticing the two security guards standing uncomfortably close to me, and the pale, sweating face of Linda Hayes hovering just behind the glass doors. She looked down at my arm, where the guard had tightly gripped it just moments before. Her protective instincts as a daughter, combined with her ruthless efficiency as a trial lawyer, took over in an instant. "Is there a problem here, Father?" Olivia asked, her voice dropping into a dangerous, icy tone that could silence a courtroom. "No problem at all, sweetheart," I replied, offering her a calm smile. "Just a slight misunderstanding about who belongs inside this building." Linda Hayes forced herself to push through the revolving doors. Her knees looked weak, and her usual commanding posture had completely dissolved into a trembling, nervous wreck. She tried to patch together her fake corporate smile, but her lips were shaking. "Ma'am, miss," Linda stammered, her voice cracking as she addressed Olivia. "I apologize for any confusion. I am Linda Hayes, the branch manager. This gentleman was simply being asked to wait outside because, well, we were experiencing a heavy volume of clients inside, and we wanted to ensure our high-priority appointments had enough space." Olivia didn't even grant Linda the courtesy of a handshake. She stood tall, stepping slightly in front of me, looking down at the manager with absolute disdain. "My name is Olivia Bennett," she said, her voice cutting through the morning air like a scalpel. "And the man you are referring to as this gentleman is Marcus Bennett. He is the founder, majority shareholder, and chairman of Bennett Capital." The name struck Linda like a physical blow. Her face drained of what little color it had left. Bennett Capital was a multi-billion-dollar global investment fund. It was a name spoken in hushed, reverent whispers in the highest financial circles. Olivia opened her premium leather briefcase with a sharp, mechanical click. She pulled out a thick, leather-bound folder embossed with the gold seal of Bennett Capital and held it right in front of Linda's face. 3 weeks ago, Your corporate headquarters scheduled a final, on-site service and culture appraisal at this specific branch. Olivia continued, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. Bennett Capital is currently finalizing a $500 million capital injection into your parent bank. This branch today was chosen as the blind test site to evaluate how your institution treats the public. My father chose to experience your customer service firsthand. Linda looked from the gold-embossed folder to my face. The pieces of the puzzle finally slammed together in her mind. The old jacket, the scuffed shoes, the refusal to skip the line. It wasn't poverty. It was a test that she had just catastrophically failed. Call your regional director, Ms. Hayes, Olivia said, closing her briefcase with a definitive thud, and tell him the meeting is no longer at corporate headquarters. The meeting is happening right here, right now, in the lobby you just kicked my father out of. The transformation inside the lobby was instantaneous. Within 10 minutes, the regional director had arrived, sweating through his expensive suit, bowing so low I thought he might touch the marble floor. Linda Hayes stood beside him, her hands pressed against her sides, tears streaming down her face. The arrogance that had defined her all morning had collapsed into a desperate, hollow panic. "Mr. Bennett, please, I beg of you," Linda sobbed, her voice echoing through the dead-silent lobby. All transactions had stopped. Every client and teller was watching. "I am so deeply sorry. If I had known who you were, if I had any idea you were the chairman, I would have cleared the entire VIP lounge for you. I would have served you myself." I looked at her. I didn't look at her with anger, or with the triumphant malice she expected. I looked at her with a profound, heavy disappointment. "That is exactly the problem, Miss Hayes," I said, my voice calm but carrying a weight that silenced her crying. "You would have treated me with dignity only if you knew my bank balance. You would have respected me only if I wore a suit that cost more than your monthly salary." I took a step forward, looking around the grand, opulent room. Wealth isn't just about what you accumulate. It's about what you retain when everything else is stripped away. I sat in your lobby for over an hour. I watched you look at an old woman with failing eyesight as if she were an administrative tour. I watched you look at an exhausted mother as if she were an eyesore. And you looked at my old jacket and decided I was completely worthless. Linda lowered her head, her shoulders shaking violently as she wept. The measure of a society, and the measure of any business, is not how it treats its elites, I continued, looking directly into her eyes. It is how it treats the people who can do absolutely nothing for them. You did not fail this test because you kicked out a billionaire, Ms. Hayes. You failed because you forgot how to be a human being to an old man who asked for nothing but his rightful turn. The regional director quickly stepped in, his voice trembling. "Mr. Bennett, I assure you, this does not represent the values of our institution. I will sign her termination papers right now. She will be barred from working in financial services in this district permanently." I held up my hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "No," I said firmly. "Termination is too easy. It allows her to leave here thinking she is simply a victim of bad luck, instead of a victim of her own prejudice." The regional director froze, his pen hovering in midair, completely unsure of how to respond to my intervention. Linda Hayes looked up through her tears, a faint, desperate flicker of hope appearing in her eyes. "I am not going to demand your termination, Ms. Hayes," I said, looking down at her calmly, "because losing your job wouldn't fix the rot in your perspective. Instead, you are going to stay right here at this bank. But effective immediately, you are stripped of your managerial title, your office, and your authority over VIP accounts." Linda blinked, stunned. "Sir, I don't understand." "You are going to be placed back into the entry-level customer service training program. I explained, my voice unyielding. For the next 6 months, you will sit at the front desk. You will welcome the people who come to cash welfare checks. You will assist the elderly who cannot read the forms. You will serve the people who wear old jackets and scuffed shoes. You will learn to see the dignity in every human being who walks through those doors. If you pass that evaluation, you keep a job. If you show even a hint of your former arrogance, you are gone. Linda nodded frantically, bowing her head repeatedly. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Thank you. I will do it. I promise I will do it. I turned my back to her and walked over to window 3. Ethan was standing behind his counter, his face a mixture of awe and nervous anticipation. The young man who had offered me a simple cup of water out of pure kindness was now looking at the billionaire who held the fate of the entire branch in his hands. Ethan, I said, offering him a warm, genuine smile. Yes, Mr. Bennett, he replied, straightening his posture. In a room filled with people who only look for profit, you were the only one who looked for humanity, I said loudly, ensuring everyone in the lobby heard me. A bank is not built by marble floors, glass walls, or multi-million-dollar transactions. It is built by trust, and trust is built by the way we treat one another. This branch needs a leader who understands that. I turned to the regional director. Effective today, Ethan is promoted to executive branch manager of this location. He will oversee the restructuring of this team, and he will have the final say on whether Ms. Hayes completes her rehabilitation program. Ethan's jaw dropped. A wave of spontaneous applause broke out from the other customers who had witnessed the entire morning unfold. The young teller looked at his new corporate badge, then back up at me, tears of gratitude welling in his eyes. I reached across the counter and gave him a firm, meaningful handshake. Keep doing what you're doing, son. Never let the money in this building change the man you are. I won't, Mr. Bennett, Ethan whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you. I turned back to Olivia, who was smiling proudly at me. Together, we walked toward the heavy glass revolving doors. As we stepped out onto the concrete steps, the 2 security guards held the doors open for us, bowing deeply in absolute respect. We climbed into the back of the midnight black SUV. As the chauffeur pulled away from the curb and integrated into the busy city traffic, I looked out the window one last time. Through the glass facade, I could see Ethan standing tall in the center of the lobby, surrounded by colleagues who were now looking at him with newfound respect. The multi-million-dollar deal would move forward, but that wasn't the victory of the day. The real victory was that in one small corner of the world, human dignity had been restored, and a powerful lesson had been